Good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Rick, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for April 27th, 2022. Today we're talking about moving on, and it's a continuance in this series of Easter messages that I've been bringing you. And so today we're getting almost a couple of weeks down the road from Easter, and some space in between all the preparation and celebration and meals and family and things like that, and life should be creeping back in, some normal routines and things. But like I've said before, living out Easter and being Easter people requires us to keep it much more present, much more forefront in our lives than is normal. So today, in talking about moving on, we're talking about what about after Jesus left. We've talked about the horrors, but immense movement of the kingdom on Good Friday. We talked about the massiveness of the resurrection and the need to live resurrected. But now we're a little bit down the road from the resurrection in the life of Jesus, 40 days. It's time for him, excuse me, time for him to go be with the Father. And so the apostles are there. They're on the Mount of Olives, and Jesus delivers what we call the Great Commission: go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Lord. And then he's gone, and the disciples are all there. They're not really truly understanding what happened. They're still gazing into the sky, and a couple of angels, we assume the same ones that were at the tomb, come by and say Jesus is gone, he'll be back, but there's no need to stand there gaping into the sky anymore. So can you imagine what they must have felt? Like, oh, what now? Where's our leaders gone? Our guidance, our orb is not with us anymore. But he had left quite a foundation for them, and he had left Peter in charge, and of course the others were there as well. And so at this point, Judas has committed suicide, and the field of blood, as it is called now, that field still exists. And so they need to do something now. Jesus is not right there with them in the immediate sense, but he's going to come back. They just don't know when. And so neither do we. So what did they do? Well, it's important, these things that they did as they got together, because it shows us what we should be doing now. First thing they did was they went back to the upper room and they prayed. So congregating together regularly with your brothers and sisters in Christ in prayer and worship and study is critical. It's the very first thing the post-ascension church did. They went back to Jerusalem, went to their gathering place, and they prayed. So we now need to put extensive emphasis on being in church, being together, praying, corporately praying and individually praying, and generally being rooted in church life, having the first natural response to any difficulty being to run to the church, run to your brothers and sisters, be in the family of Christ, and even in his actual sanctuary. So that then should take on a significant importance to you personally, to make sure that you are participating in the corporate worship and the life of the church, and that you are not only being fed, but you're feeding others with your presence. And it is a uniting thing to do. The next thing that the disciples did was they had to replace Judas. Now, replacing Judas in of itself, not a huge act. They needed somebody for a few reasons. They needed to go about the business of the church, but the number 12 is incredibly important in Jewish life. There was the 12 tribes. They no longer had 12 of them, and they needed to rectify that. But for us today, what we look at is really after they got together and unified themselves in prayer, the next thing they did was they went about the business of the church. They just got on their horse and rode. We need an apostle, and so we're going to pick one. And they did. They went through a process, and they came up with Matthias. And interestingly, we don't hear anything else about Matthias other than he was picked. Just one of those Bible things I find curious. And of course, later on there was Paul. So, what do we need to do now? Well, we need to, after we focus and unify ourselves and get ourselves fortified with prayer and fellowship and spiritual maturity through discipleship, study of the Bible, we then need to get about the business of the church. For us today, it's much more simple than what they had to do. They had to start a movement. They had to start a worldwide movement. And for somebody who had to, the Roman world anyway, been a criminal, and they need to now go against Roman culture and law at great peril to themselves and anybody with them. They had to go out into all the known world and start Christianity, the church anyway. It started with Jesus Christ, but they needed to establish the church. So for us, the job hasn't changed. We need to establish the church. It's already a worldwide thing. We got that done for us. But numbers are declining. Churches are declining. And people aren't coming back to church in droves after COVID. Some of them went away and they've stayed away. And then, of course, there's just a general population of the lost that there always is. And so we need to get about the business of the church. We don't know when Jesus is coming back. And like the apostles that didn't really know what to do, they just simply did what Jesus had instructed them to do. Go and make disciples. That's what we need to do. We need to go and make disciples. We need to get about the business of the church. We need to be the informers of Christianity, the movers of Christianity, the administrators of Christianity, and we need to manage what was left to us, the ministry of reconciliation. We need to manage that on behalf of Jesus Christ, just like the disciples needed to go out and do what Jesus had left for them to do. It's basically the same job for us now. So listen, brothers and sisters, we needn't wonder what to do. The job is clear. The tools have been given to us. You have spiritual gifts. You have a church home. You have a church family. You have means to grow spiritually, both in knowledge and maturity. And you have resources. You have a way to do what you're supposed to do. And so I would suggest to you, as part of this whole living resurrected process that I've been talking to you about for a few weeks now, get about the business of the church. Get about the things that Jesus Christ taught and told you that you were to do in order to be his disciple. Listen, I love you. I hope you have a marvelous day. It is a marvelous day to be a Christian, and I will talk to you next time.